Welcome. I'm Malcolm Wyatt, Secretary to the Oscar Heidenstam Foundation, and on behalf of the Board of Trustees I would like to take this opportunity to thank you very much for buying our videos. It is by your kind support that helps us to help others. We would also like to thank John Citrone of Peak Body Nutritional Products, who supports the Foundation not only at our annual occasions but by his generous support of our videos. The videos carry a copyright to prevent illegal duplication, as such things would diminish our opportunity to help others. Our first dinner was in 1992, where John C. Grimmick was our first honoree. Unfortunately, we were unable to video this, but John and Angela Grimmick came back again in 1995 at the 4th annual dinner, and this is on videotape number 2. And welcome to videotape number 5 with Chris Dickerson, an honoured guest. It's the 8th annual Hall of Fame dinner, and another wonderful number of guests, 135 in total, all famous as they always are at all our functions. Included Chris Dickerson's brother John Dickerson and Miguel Assis, all from New York. Jean Costa of Britain, 90 odd years old, the wife of Charlie Costa, the first Mr. Britain in 1930, and what a lady she is, as you will see. During the tape I shall probably do some narration, particularly on the ever-growing amount of memorabilia and one or two aspects of the dinner. It's staggering, all thanks to the kind donations of people who not only send financial donations to us, but you know, articles, items for the grand draw and silent auction, and our own memorabilia. Absolutely wonderful. Thank you so much. And also watch out for some interesting interviews. So do sit back and enjoy history in the making. And here we are, actually in the Commonwealth Suite at the Marriott Hotel, just prior to the start of this year's dinner. And do look out for towards the end of this tape there's some impromptu entertainment, and for the first time in history 2 men lifted the inch dumbbell onto its storage box. That was Eddie Elwood and Bill Richardson. So just watch how they do it, left-handed and right-handed, particularly Bill Richardson. First time in history, remarkable. As you can see, we're now looking at the silent auction items donated by everybody. The coloured drawings at the back there, paintings by Roy Adams of Reg Parks, all the Hall of Fame stars. There's some of the memorabilia, slate statuette presented to Oscar at one of the Britons in 1980, I think it was. Painted the cuttings there, I've cut out of a newspaper in 1939 and pasted on the balls, which is when Oscar won the 1939 Mr. Europe. Grand draw prizes all donated, from radios and televisions to jewellery, as you can see there. Oh, there's a television this year. We put the picture of Chris Dickerson on there, which he donated some colour photographs to us, amongst many other things. Wines, bottles of spirit. There's a food hamper there, probably got £100 worth of food tucked away. Food mixers. Wonderful. Thank you so much, everyone. Back to the memorabilia. The diploma there in front is the 1939 diploma that Oscar won. There's a photograph of him there receiving it, which you can't actually make out the details. When he won the first British competitor to win the Mr. Europe. His medals, medallions, army record, military medals, because he was a major. He ended up as a major in the Royal Army Physical Training Corps. The Hall of Fame winners. That was donated to us by Derek Gibbons, made out of almost one solid block of wood, cherry wood and English elm. That card with Oscar on it was one that we did in 1980 at the 60th Britain show. I had it drawn up in Hereford, and then it was signed by all the people who donated for an award for him. There's Reg Parks and Steve Ree's drawings by Roy Adams. Bill Pearl, of course. The slip, you'll see the slips on the right hand side of the picture. You just enter your ticket number in and the amount you want to bid for it, and then somebody comes along and crosses it out and puts their bid in. There's a painting by John Grimmick, The Glow, they called him in those days, John Grimmick, painted by Les Wright. There's a broader view of the sides from some of the silent auction nights and more silent auction items. As you can imagine, quite a few. We usually get about 60 or 70 items donated there in packages, which we put together. Large photographs there are produced by Roy Adams. Produces them free of charge for us as well. They're 6 foot high. John Grimmick, Reg Park, Steve Reeves with a Sandow statuette, bronze statuette. He won when he won the first NABA Mr. Universe, Amateur Universe. Bill Pearl, George Eifman, Lovable George. How about that for an arm? Larry Scott, Paul Winter, the man with the taper, and Chris Dickerson, this year's honoree. Mr. Olympia, Mr. America, Jean Costa, 90 years old, or just over 90. It's the widow of Shaz Costa, the first Mr. Britain in 1930. Roy Edwards, editor of Health and Strength. Joanne Connor, or Joanne Norris as she was, Colin Norris, Vice Chairman's daughter, talking to Norman Hibbett and Sylvia Hibbett on your left of the picture. I passed on the Health and Strength magazine to Roy this particular year, or rather a few months before, and he's doing a fine job in publishing Health and Strength, the official journal of the Health and Strength magazine. Chris James, chap who's shaking his arms there, powerlifter. Not a powerlifter as you and I know it, but specialises emulating the old-time strongman's lift, and he's completely drug-free. There's Renato, the head waiter. Lovable Renato does all the table layouts for us, or helps us, advises us. He's been doing that since 1992, our first dinner. Beryl Martin and Bill Hibbett. Beryl Martin signing the memorial book together with Jean Costa, who I've just mentioned. There's Wally Wright in the background and June Wright. Malcolm Goldsack, great friend, great helper, really nice guy, helps the foundation in several ways. Comes from Kent. As you can see, plenty of opportunity to socialise. You never know who you're going to meet. To meet some old friends, make some new ones. There's Eric Hartley, multi-bodybuilding title holder in the southwest England. Danny Breen there in the Dicky by Toe, you can see in the distance, organiser of the South East Britain show, now that Norman Hibbett has retired from running those shows. As you can see, we've now got close on probably 130 to 150 guests there. I believe the final figure was about 138 guests. A lot of people book their tickets year on year, many new ones each year, so they're making more friends, more supporters. Makes it a very warm and friendly occasion. And we've got Colin Norris, the Vice Chairman, in the middle of the picture there with his back to you. And the young man with the bald head there is Colin Gillam, who was an honoree before. He was also an honoree many years ago, not of the foundation, but with an Ian McQueen Award, which is now called the Tom Templey Award, for overcoming tremendous physical handicaps. Very great supporter like Mick and Pat Vaughan. There's Colin and Tina Gillam. I can't see his wife at the moment. I know Roy Edwards and Steve Gardner are here. The respective publishers of Roy, of course, as I mentioned, Health and Strength, and Steve Gardner of Muscle Mob, that used to be run by Dave Gentle. There's Wag Bennett laughing at the back there in the middle of your picture, and Roy Duval on to his right, first Englishman to win the Universe, the Britain, the Europe and the World titles within a 12-month period. There's Diane Bennett with Harry Griffiths. That was Patrick Gunnar and Helmut Reidmeier from Germany, and Roger Noon and Mark Shaw, Mark Eildon, Steve Overy. You see Dave Webster there with Dr. Tom Templey, Vice President, in the centre of your picture. Dave with the white jacket there. Norman and Norman Hibbett, Chris Dickerson just crossing your picture. And now the guests are taking their seat. There's Dave Gentle on my right. Cliff LeMay sitting next on the left of Chris Dickerson, and Silver Hibbett.
As you know, this foundation that formed on the death of the great man Oscar Heidenstam. We all know Oscar Heidenstam was a people's man, and he stood for everybody, he helped everyone, and this is our aim, to try and help everyone and to be friendly and do what we can. So please remember, ladies and gentlemen, we are here in his name. I would now like to hand you over to our MC for the evening, our Vice Chairman, Mr. Colin Norris.
So tonight is about giving, it's about receiving, and we want to start off the evening by actually giving something away. Several of you are staying tonight in the hotel, and the foundation would like to, we've got all the names of the people staying here tonight, and we want to draw one name out, and we want to give you a free night here at the Marriott. So you won't get a bill tomorrow morning for tonight. And that's our way from the trustees to thank you for coming along and helping us to raise money. Your help. And some red champagne as well. So thanks, Roy. Thank you very much. Just to tell you, it's funny Roy should stand up and probably going to thank him later on. But Roy does all these photographs for us, which is great for us. The other thing, as I say, it's to raise money, and a couple of my friends here have actually donated some money. If I can get in 3 words that are quite unusual during the evening, so I'm going to try and get these words in if I can, and if I can, then they're going to give 5 or 10 to the foundation. So we're looking forward to that. As we said, we're not here to worship a man. We're not here to give to Oscar, but we're carrying on what Oscar was about. And as we said, each one of us, a lot of us here were privileged to see him, and we would all have a story to tell, whether it was an arm round us when we never quite got the position we wanted to get, or whether it was the bus fare home, because we had spent all our money during the day. But that's what we want to do in the foundation, and we want to carry on helping individuals and worrying about the individuals. And we do thank you for your help. I know as times get harder, it's hard to get up the money for a weekend away, but it's the only time us bodybuilders get to put a suit on, and our wives get to dress up, or our partners get to dress up. So we do thank you for coming along. And in keeping with Oscar's beliefs, we would like to give thanks for the food we're about to have now. So if you want to join me in a short prayer, then do so. Lord and Heavenly Father, we do thank you for travelling mercies for each one of us that arrive here safely. Lord, as we partake of this food that you so kindly provided for us, Lord, make us mindful of those that may be not quite as fortunate this evening. Lord, and help us to remember this. I pray these things in Jesus' name. Thank you. Well, I do hope you have a delightsome evening, and that you enjoy yourself. So that's a £5. I've got delightsome in. And enjoy yourself, and I'll be popping up when we get near to the Malcolm, our secretary, but he's one of the members of the foundation as well. And him and Wendy do tireless work throughout the year. And quite honestly, I think we'd all say, if it wasn't for Malcolm and Wendy's work throughout the year, we wouldn't be as well organised on this night. So would you give a round of applause for... That's the good news. He's on his feet already. He's only speaking about 50 times as we go on. So let me hand over to Malcolm Wyatt.
Okay, thank you, Colin. Welcome everybody, it's lovely to see you all again, and so many new faces and so many old faces, including my own. But I hope you're having a lovely evening. And I'd just like to mention that I've had 1 or 2 interesting letters this evening. Yes, I've just had some interesting letters and faxes this week. But before I read the first one, we'd like to welcome, make a special mention to Norman and Sylvia Hibbert on my left. Norman was appointed to the board last summer, so welcome Norman officially, and Sylvia, his lovely wife. Thank you very much. Right, just a quick word that we are very mindful, those who are not here today, Al Murray and Don Durant and Artie Zeller and George Foster, who are no longer with us, which leads me on to the first fax from Dr. Ken Leo Rosa. Now, as you know, Leo Rosa comes every year, and this year he's heartbroken he can't make it, wonderful pianist, wonderful man, and he said that if there had never been a John Grimmick, there might not have been a Reg Park or a Bill Pearl, and if there had not been a Reg Park, there probably would have not been Arnold Schwarzenegger as we knew him. Most of us veterans would never have entered the field of physical culture if there had never been a John Grimmick to have inspired us. And which leads me on to a card that I had from Angela Grimmick this week, and it's just coincidental that she chose a lighthouse as the front of the card. I can't read the message inside because that wouldn't be right, but she is with us in thought, and she's chosen a lighthouse, and a lighthouse was Oscar's favourite place on earth as well, so I thought that was quite fitting. So we haven't forgotten the great, the king, John Grimmick. We've also had a fax from, thank you very much, we've also had a fax from the Association of Old Time Barbara Strongman Association from Vic Boff, the president, and on our behalf of our association, we send our congratulations to Chris Dickerson, David Webster, Russ Warner and Henry Atkins, and the honorees who did the gymnastics, that's Bob Currier, and the Tom Templey Awards, that's Chris James, just down there on table 7, are being selected for the 8th Annual Hall of Fame Awards. We owe a great deal to those men who have contributed greatly to the lore and legacy of our great iron game and physical culture pastime. Our best wishes to the honorees, the trustees and to everyone present. May you all have a most enjoyable evening on this memorable occasion. We of the Old Time Barbell Strongmen's Association are with you all in spirit. And Jack, another one from Jack and Elaine. Elaine, love and health and blessings to all of you for a very successful and enjoyable evening. Elaine and Jack Elaine. And finally, one from a certain gentleman, I just about remember his name, it's Arnold Schwarzenegger. Now, as you know, we keep our nominees' names highly secret until we've had an acceptance from them. That's only courtesy. But it's an open secret, of course, that Arnold has a year-on-year invitation to this function. And we've always said in our literature there are surprise guests. Now this year it was very close. He had hoped to attend, even up to just a few days ago. But as you know, he's a very busy man, he has a film schedule to follow, and so he's written the following, etc., my correspondence and so on, and phone calls. Regrettably, I'm still unable to attend your prestigious induction into the Hall of Fame at this time. I think very highly of your foundation, and I hope you will consider, or rather, I hope you will consider me in future years. Now, that's it in brief, but he does think highly, and he wishes of the foundation, and he wishes you a most enjoyable evening. Thank you, Arnold, and thank you, everybody. So I'd now like to pass you over to Cliff LeMace, our chairman.
Thank you, Malcolm. As has been said before, Malcolm does sterling work for us, but there's two gentlemen here tonight who always attend this function. They give us great publicity in two journals which they publish. Roy Edwards of Health and Strength, and those of you who have read the new Health and Strength, I'm sure you'll see what I mean. Steve Gardner from Muscle Mob also gives us great mention in the magazine. They both help us tremendously, they give us great publicity, and I'd like these two gentlemen to please step forward and just receive a little token of our gratitude. Roy, Steve. If you don't already subscribe to these two magazines, I suggest you do. They're really good. Health and Strength, I'm sure, is going to go from strength to strength. And Muscle Mob, it's really worth reading. There's a lot of good information about past and present champions. They're both worth reading. So make a donation to these guys. Make a subscription. They're well worth reading. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
You will have an opportunity to see how good these magazines are, because after we've finished the proceedings, down at the very end there'll be actually giveaway magazines, there'll be magazines being sold and subscriptions being taken out, and various things, either freebies or for you to buy. So have a look at these two magazines. They really are truly British magazines. Truly British in the fact that they've got home news, not news that has happened months and months ago, and no sort of swear words, whatever. As we do seem to get no scantily dressed women though. That's the only problem. We're working on it. But they are great magazines, and you can have a look afterwards tonight. Okay, we now move on to our next award. It's an award that used to be given at the NABA shows, and it was instigated by Ian McQueen, and then he went over the pond to America. It was taken up by Tom Templey, and we moved it to this function a couple of years ago because we felt it was more in keeping, and it gave more credence to what we wanted to do and say. And so I call on Malcolm on behalf of Tom Templey to give the Tom Templey Award.
Thank you, Colin. Well, it's a coincidence, really, because we have Colin Gillam, who won it in, I think, in 1968, when it was the Ian McQueen Award. Forgive me for my glasses. I have to put them on every time I look at a piece of paper. Of course, we have Mark Hanson, who won 2 years ago, was given that honour, and then we have Michael Bartlett, who was last year's winner. And this year, we have another special gentleman. His name is Chris James. He's sitting down at table 7, together with his mum and his dad, Mum Jackie and Father Eddie. Stand up, Chris. I'm sorry about this. He's a very modest young man. As you'll appreciate, we do quite a lot of research on our honorees, and to say he's modest is an understatement. He's drug-free. He's about the most modest man I've ever met. His main interest in life is unusual strength lifts. At the moment, he's following Paul Anderson's schedule, so to give you some idea. When I say he's very modest, I found out quite a lot of this, not only from his club mates, but also he's quite a legend in his locality and at work, where he works at British Railways. To demonstrate some of the things he's tried and achieved, he not so long ago cleaned a railway axle, which is 2 inches in diameter. It weighed 260 pounds. He pressed it for 10 reps and put it down. He can clean an Olympic barbell. I want to say clean it, I'm not quite sure how, but I've seen it done years ago. 125 pounds on an Olympic barbell. Bend down, clean it, bend down, clean the other one, that's 125, one in each hand, press it overhead. Unusual to say the least. I understand, I'm not sure this is true, Chris, that you can also do full hang chins with 240 pounds around, beg your pardon, 150 pounds around your waist, 8 repetitions. A 2-finger full hang chin, that's in the full hang position, 2 fingers over the bar. Chin yourself 8 times with 88 pounds around the waist. Not bad. He, as a schoolboy, he was, I believe, a boxing champion down in Wales, a karate expert. His father was a world champion drug-free powerlifter in 4 years ago, and his great-grandfather, it must be genetics, Chris, his great-grandfather was Wolf James, mentioned in Dave Webster's Sons of Samson book. Have a chat to Chris. You'll find what he can achieve and what he does for others. Well, you won't find out what he does for others, he's too modest, but nice young man. He's done a one-handed deadlift, 500 pounds, straight leg deadlifts, 8 reps, 500 pounds, walks around the field with 130 pounds in each hand. He squatted off the power racks, 20 reps at 400, 650 pounds, 5 reps. Bench press, where are we now? 500 pounds, 3 reps, and it goes on. Clean 2 dumbbells, 2 reps with 150 pounds, press. 125 pound dumbbells, 20 reps, etc. And it goes on. Now that might sound quite surprising, but he's also done quite a lot of helpful work to young people and other people in Wales. And there's quite a lot of people, I think he probably doesn't realise how much he's respected down there. And in helping a friend last November, or just before Christmas, and he decided, because the chap was very unhappy, etc., decided to escort him home. To cut a long story short, they were approached by three men. Chris placated them, two men. Chris placated them with some kind words, and he thought they'd gone. He carried on walking up the road with his friend. One of these men went into the house, grabbed a bread knife, and plunged it into his spine, through to the right, just above the kidney on the right side, down through, just missing going through the spleen. He's got a scar. I mean, how he lived, the doctor said it was 1,000,000 to 1 chance that he lived, but because he's so muscular underneath, that probably diverted it from 1 or 2 of the vital organs, so he's got a scar from here to here. He's very modest about that, and some of the list that I've given you and some of the examples that he's doing in this present day. Now, Ian McQueen is president is a very eminent surgeon, and I'm sure Ian will be rather surprised and very cautious in giving Chris the advice to just ease up a little, Chris, because we're very worried that you might burst some old scar tissue, etc. But well done, Chris. You're to be admired. You're drug-free, you're clean, you love physical culture, you read all the old books, you wanted to meet all the people here, and congratulations on being nominated for the Dr. Tom Templey Award this year. And let's hope your health continues to progress. Thank you, Chris. Thank you. Chris James, the handsome young man amongst all of them. That's Lily LeMay's chairman's wife. Big kiss. Thank you. That's a pleasure. Thank you, Colin.
Okay, we go on to our next award, and this is for special recognition, and I call on Cliff to nominate this award.
We're going to get fed up of hearing it. This year's recipient of this award is Russ Warner, world-renowned physique photographer. I'm sure all of you have read magazines over the years and seen countless pictures he's taken on covers everywhere. In October of last year, my wife and I had the pleasure of visiting Russ and his wife Jean, who most of you know always visits this function, in their home in California. And during our 2-week stay, I spent quite a considerable time with Russ and had many a conversation about his career. Russ first started weight training way back in 1937 at Jack LaLanne's gym. His interest in photography grew along with his body, and he soon started photographing bodybuilders, which was to be cut short by World War II. And Russ went on to spend 4 years serving in the Mediterranean in the US Navy. On leaving the Navy, he resumed his favourite hobby, and he went on to photograph just about every top physique you could name, including such great stars as John Grimmick, Clancy Ross, Bill Pearl, Reg Parks, gentleman at my side here, Steve Reeves, Arnold Schwarzenegger, and many, many more. He produced many of Jack LaLanne's TV shows and also designed the lighting for the film of Jane Mansfield's story, in which Arnold Schwarzenegger played the part of Jane's husband, Mickey Hargitay, who I'm sure some of you will have met at the last Mr. Universe dinner. The big man liked Russ's work so much that he employed him to take charge of the lighting when Arnold promoted the Mr. Olympia. To this day, Russ still enjoys taking photographs, weight training. I mean, he's going on for 84 years of age now, and he still trains 3 times a week. He walks 3 miles a day, twice a week. And his pride and joy is to drive his 1983 Ferrari, which I've had experience with him, and he's quite a character in this car. He has a wicked sense of humour, which we witnessed whilst in his company. Unfortunately, Ross cannot be with us tonight. He's had a health problem and his doctor has advised him not to travel. He's got a problem with arteries in one of his legs. His wife, Jean, who most of you know, always attends our function, as I've said before, has decided to remain at home and keep an eye on him, because you never know with Russ, he's liable to sort of run around the block or do something silly. And therefore I would like to call upon Dr. Tom Temperley to receive the award on Ross's behalf. Tom will be travelling over to the USA in August and he'll be visiting San Diego, and he's kindly offered to deliver our award to him personally. Tom, would you like to receive the award? Thank you very much. I'm sure you'll all join me in wishing Ross a very speedy recovery, and who knows, he might yet be with us next year.
Thank you, Cliff. If we've got new people here tonight, you might be unaware that apart from the time that Oscar spent in bodybuilding, which was a considerable amount of time of his each of his weeks, he had a love for gymnastics and he had a love for ballet. And the foundation honour each year somebody from ballet and somebody from gymnastics. Now, we haven't had a nomination from ballet this year, so we only have a nomination from the Gymnastics Society. And I call upon Malcolm to make this award.
Thank you, Colin. Well, this year, our 8th year, goes to Mr. Robert, or Bob Currier. And Bob Currier is sitting over here. Can you stand up, Bob? There he is. Bob is here, of course, with his wife, Elaine, and his daughter, Anne, and Steve. Welcome to all 4 of you. This nomination was received by the British Amateur Gymnastics Association, and Bob, it's very difficult to give his history because he's done so much and helped so many people, and particularly the British Schools Gymnastics and English Schools Gymnastics Association. He was a former president of that association, and also he's one of the longest, if not the longest serving member of the Birmingham City Gymnastics Club. And I think, as Bob said to me earlier this evening, he's come full circle. Because years ago, if you wanted to know about gymnastics, the only journal that was the official journal of gymnastics was Roy Edwards' magazine, Health and Strength. So he knew about Oscar, he'd seen him on stage in the Health and Strength League shows, and he's come full circle back into the bodybuilding, not into the bodybuilding, but back with us all here. And so this is, you have a very long career, Bob. Sorry about fumbling on that one. Bob, of course, has gone on from those things to be a world-class gymnastics coach and judge. He's been judging at the highest level, national, international, world championships, I believe at 2 Olympic Games. You can't go higher than that. He's helped a great deal of many people. A lot of this is endorsed by a colleague of his, Joan Jackman, or Jakeman, who I had the mistake to call her Joan Goldbrood, which she lived in Goldbrood Road, but she soon put me right. So she gave me a lot of information, Bob, and there's a lot of people at the club there that have mentioned you, how much they've appreciated all your hard work over the years. And so all I can say now, and very succinctly, is congratulations for a lifetime of work, and you look young enough to continue for another 25 years. Thank you, Bob. Thank you very much, Bob.
The ambassadors of physical culture and bodybuilding and weightlifting. And with that in mind, I'd like to hand over to Tom Templey to make this award.
This
Chairman, ladies and gentlemen, in the 1940s, there was a group of people that maintained the status quo of bodybuilding and weightlifting. These included Bill Pullum, Jack Walsh, DJ Johnson, Laurie Webb in the weightlifting, in the bodybuilding, John Bars, Oscar State in the weightlifting. A man came into the sport in about 46, who changed the atmosphere in bodybuilding and weightlifting. It was involved in manufacturing state-of-the-art equipment, running a gymnasium. He was a publisher and editor of a magazine. This gentleman was called Henry Acton, and he changed the face of bodybuilding and weightlifting in the UK from 1946 onwards. Henry was athletically inclined in his early school days. He was good at soccer. In the long jump and the high jump he held records. For a time he trained at the Northern Polytechnic under a watchful eye of Fred Mills, who was a former world champion, a wrestler and a Sandow instructor. From him, Henry learned tumbling, horizontal and parallel bar work and wrestling. And he was so successful in gymnastics that he teamed up with Laurie Webb and formed a touring company of equilibrists, doing gymnastics, hand balancing and tumbling on the halls. On his 20th birthday, he was given a 240-pound barbell, and this changes his outlook on physical culture, I believe. He developed a deep interest in weightlifting, which I believe he retains to this day. His expertise was soon recognised, and during the war, he became a physical training instructor, like Burt Loveday, Rube Martin, Ted Aston, and of course Oscar. After the war, he was secretary for the British Amateur Weightlifting Association, and in 1946, he and his friend John Bars published the Vigor magazine, which was on art paper. It presented superb photographs, and one of them started myself training with weights. It was a picture of Rex Duval and Tony, I think it was Tony Aston, but it was a superb photograph, and it inspired me to start training. After the war, Henry set up the barbell company, the Viking Barbell Company, and I believe because of the poor quality of weightlifting equipment, Henry decided and made his mind up that he would improve the equipment, and he brought out the Viking barbell that was the standard equipment at the 1948 Olympic Games. And this was really a standard piece of equipment that was used for many years at all the British Championships. Henry personally supervised many of the top physical culturists in training, and in 1948, Reg Park went to train with Henry, and he trained, I believe, for about a month prior to Mr. Britain that he won. Reg told me that he trained actually 3 times a day under Henry's guidance, and he made tremendous progress, which we all know the result resulted in winning the Mr. Britain. Henry found time to write one of the finest no-nonsense books on bodybuilding, entitled Progressive Bodybuilding Culture. He then started publishing another magazine called Body Culture that set a new standard in the field of printing thoroughly on fine art paper in a similar standard to Vigour, with covers including John Grimmick, Reg Park, Clancy Ross, Steve Reeves, Leo Roberts, Spencer Churchill and many others. The contributors included Reg Park and Rube Martin, and those copies are really classics today and collector's items. In 1953, sadly for the British enthusiasts, Henry left Britain for the States, where he became a successful businessman. And even though his business curtailed his mainstream involvement in the game, he never lost touch with his friends, included the late John Ford, Reg Island, Wag Bennett, and Mrs. Costa, the widow of his old friend John Costa. Henry has been retired for about 12 years and is now savouring the fruits of his labour in California, where he lives in apparently a very pleasant location in Malibu. Henry might not be aware of how many of his friends and contemporaries in America and UK respect and admire him. He's always been very helpful to people, generous, and has guided their sports careers. Henry, in recognition of your eminence as an ambassador of physical culture, we'd appreciate you receiving this award.
Just a special message from Leo Stern, George Coates, Bill Pearl, Steve Reeves, Ray Hart and Angela Grimmick, who send their very best wishes to you and Judy and to all the people at the table. And also I would like to add a special tribute to Jean, because Jean's husband Charlie Costa won the 1931 Mr. Britain, and Jean is a special guest of Henry, and I've been told that you won't mind my saying you're a wonderful lady, Jean. 89 years old. You are wonderful.
Henry, you couldn't fit in the first 2 weeks in July in Malibu, could you? I'll be down there for the holidays. Where's he gone? He's gone again. Come on, I want you back here in a second. Yes, I do. We've now come to the award of the Outstanding Services to Physical Culture. Malcolm Wyatt. Not you, you're doing this thing. But don't sit down, stand up. Look, Malcolm Wyatt's do this award.
Now this is going to be very difficult. We're talking of David Webster, and would you like to stand up, David? David Webster. David on his table is joined by some members of his immediate family, Julie, Leslie and Jamie, and his lifelong hand balancing partner, strength and weightlifting partner and great friend Alex Thompson, his lifelong friend Alex Thompson. Why I say that this is rather difficult, David, ladies and gentlemen, is because his CV is an encyclopedia. He's a former chairman of the Scottish Physical Recreation Council and he was awarded the OBE for his services. He's a former chairman and Scotland's team leader for the Commonwealth Games. is the organiser of the Highland Games. He's a co-organiser of the World's Strongest Man contest on TV. He was honoured in the Hall of Fame by the Old Time Barbell and Strongmen's Association in America. He's a world-famous author of Beefcake and Barbells. 2 of his books are down there, Beefcake and Barbells, Sons of Samson, volumes 1 and 2. He's doing another one, he tells me, or rather, David didn't tell me, I found out he's been doing research for years. He just completed another book. He's an impeccable researcher and an historian on strength feats. There's nobody in the world that I know of that is a better historian on strength feats. He has an indescribable collection of physical culture awards and memorabilia, surpassing even what we have down there. That's how much David was respected. He's a referee of weightlifting, of strength feats, of judo, of wrestling. He was a judge of bodybuilding. He's a photographer. He's a former bodybuilder. He was a hand balancer with Alex, a strength athlete who competed with the best and beaten many. He was a former strand pulling champion and the only man to extend a particular set of strands that unfortunately, due to circumstances beyond his control, he couldn't bring them with him today. He recently assisted, so I'm told, there's a film producer who's making a film. I'm not sure which was that, but he may well tell us. He must be one of the world's greatest travellers, meeting and interviewing the famous, organising, officiating, researching, collecting, and then some. David is an amazing and still active physical culturist who is not now in his 60s. Last month, he entered and won the Scottish Masters Weightlifting Championship. I said he's not in his 60s. For winning that in his category, and Alex, his lifelong partner, who did the same, winning the weightlifting in his category, they will be in the British Championships, I believe, next month. Now, when you think that David started, if you've looked in your dinner card, and you've noticed that there's a photograph in there, I think possibly when you were 14, and you're already a champion. And here we are that was in 1944, I believe, and now we're in 1999. And he's done it all, he's had the t-shirt, and now he's moving on to other championships. You really are amazing, David. I hope I haven't missed anything out. Personally, I would like to endorse one thing that I found out, known him many years. He's helped me in my research, he's extended many kindnesses without my asking him. His word is his bond. His word is his bond, and he's got time for everyone. So you're very modest, David. He doesn't realise how much he's appreciated. As I said, you're admired and respected around the world by your countless friends. And David, we are all honoured in this room to be privileged to be counted amongst your friends. I can't say more than that. Congratulations, David.
Maybe Webster. I'm sure you don't want to say anything. I'm sure you don't want to say anything. No, okay. For those who, I might have to interpret because he's got a bit of an accent.
Thank you very much indeed. Ladies and gentlemen, it's not often I'm lost for words, and I probably won't be lost in a moment or two, but at the moment I feel almost speechless. I've been sabotaged well and truly tonight because I'm sitting at the table here. They've been plying me with drinks. I'm not a drinking man, and it's just been a bit too much, but I'm not under the affluence of alcohol, also some fungal peep I am. But it really is a wonderful occasion to be here. It's always wonderful to be here with camaraderie and the sociability of a night like this, and tonight is just extra special for me and it's very, very hard just to think of all the things. So I've made a few notes. I think that my spirits are high, although I'm stammering a little bit at the moment. I don't think that Hercules could lift my spirits any higher than they are at the moment. The people at the top table, it's not my job to do a vote of thanks, but they really have done me a great honour, and I know that many of you are part of this, and I'm very much appreciative of this. I'm deeply conscious of the fact that being involved in these activities, I have been the one who has benefited over the years. You speak about other people, but I really feel that I have benefited greatly. It's endowed me with the physical health and strength. So for that I'm very grateful. I'm still very active today, and it's through health and strength. I'm still getting a magic carpet to take me around the world through the activities in which I'm involved. But the most important thing of all to me is having friends like you and acquaintances. You know, sometimes we only speak for a little while, but the whole feeling that you come away with after a night like this is something that you keep with you for a long, long time. And I look around to these trustees here, and I know them personally. They don't know just how much I know about them. They might be a little bit worried if they did. But I do know an awful lot about them. And folks, we've got to thank them for an awful lot. This all started with Oscar Heidenstam. I'm not going to belabor the point, but I remember the days with great pleasure of Oscar coming to Aberdeen in northeast of Scotland, appearing at our shows there, performing there. I remember being with him, judging the Mr. Universe at the Palladium in London, and so on and so forth. And with Oscar's demise, these gentlemen brought it forward, took that forward, and year after year, they've given us this wonderful evening. And their involvement has been something very special. As I say, it's something that people should know. And it's not just this. We could go along the table. You've seen Malcolm's work for yourself, it's been mentioned, so I won't say too much about him, although he said an awful lot about me. But could I just mention a couple who are giving something back in a very positive way? Ian McQueen and Tom Temperley. You know, these guys have been at it for many years, working quietly and doing good by stealth. Absolutely fantastic. I can tell you, Ian McQueen, his photograph was pre-war. They're talking about me being old. Wait a minute. And, you know, his photograph was in pre-war Health and Strengths. I remember it well. And, you know, he was there in France, representing Britain in physique contests and doing very well. But, as was mentioned, an eminent surgeon now, I also remember being somebody that he didn't know, and he didn't remember this when I told him earlier this evening. When I was competing in my very last strand pulling match, I had a couple of injuries which were giving me great pain. And I wrote to Ian McQueen, who I'd read so much about in Health and Strength. He was in Salford at the time, Salford Hospital. And I wrote and said, could he give me a pain-killing injection because of what I was going through, and I didn't want to chicken out of this competition. He said he wouldn't. I could do irreparable damage, but he gave me some pain-killing pills which took me through the competition. For that, I'm eternally grateful. He gave me good advice about my injuries. You know, didn't know me. Still can't remember about that incident, but he's done that a million times. Bert Asarati, I didn't intend to tell you this, and I won't say any more. Bert Asarati, the greatest wrestler that Britain has ever known. Bert told me, oh, Ian McQueen did my hip replacements. How many people knew that? He's never told anybody, he's never been in the magazines. We could go on. And, you know, we could run along that table. There's two wonderful hand balancers at the end here. I've always envied Norman because his partner's much better looking than this other guy back here. Really, we've got a wonderful band of people at that table, and we really owe them our thanks. The only thing I don't like, Malcolm took me to his sumptuous room this evening, told me all the things I had to say and what I hadn't to say, and so on. So, you know, there we go. But it's not just them. The whole staff, look how wonderful the staff is here. Don't they make you feel friendly? You know, they're so friendly. The wine waiter recognised me as soon as I come in here this evening. Not surprised. I gave him a very good tip last year. Unfortunately, he reminded me that the horse dropped dead before he got to the starting post. But, you know, your wine waiters, your English wine waiters are absolutely fantastic. So knowledgeable. You know, all the wines and spirits, they know them all. And for somebody like me that doesn't know much about this, you know, I think they're very clever. I mean, for years I thought that Bristol Cream was just a bus developer. You know? But I've asked Malcolm there, I asked him to advise me a little bit on the kind of thing that I should say. He suggested that I look back down memory lane and say a few words maybe about strong men, recollect some incidents, maybe something about that he spoke about history and the history of the Highland Games. He asked me to tell you one particular thing which I'll think about, but let's see. He only asked me to talk about the origins of Highland Games because he's truly of the opinion that the English introduced Highland Games to Scotland to keep the Scots' minds off cattle stealing. That's absolutely untrue. We gave up cattle stealing when we found out that it was much easier to buy the cows and not pay for them. But the English do have a lot to answer for in Highland Games. They came up over the border, a group of English thugs. They came up there to steal our women. Not our cows, our women. But they saw our women, a bunch of picking niggers, and what did they do? They took our cows instead. You know, terrible. But ladies and gentlemen, I think that I have been asked to look down memory lane. I find that very difficult because when you get older, your memory is the first thing to go. Or is it the second? I forget. Anyway, the thing is this, that I can remember as far back, and I'll only tell you one story. The strong man, it hasn't been published in any papers yet, it might be published soon. Strong men in Morocco last year. I'll mention some names. Bill Kazmaier, Jamie Reeves, and a young fellow you won't know, Colin Bryce, all went out for a meal after a hard day under the cameras. Absolutely true story, not a funny made-up one. They had a nice meal and came out of the restaurant feeling quite replete. Now over in Morocco, they were looking for a taxi to take them back to the hotel. And they don't have the big black London taxi cabs there. Instead, they go for white Mercedes. And Bill spotted one just sitting at the traffic lights as we come out of the hotel. And he's got a great ton of speed for a big guy, you know. And he was across there. By the way, he's so fast, he claims to be able to put out the light at night and get to bed before the room is dark. That's his claim. But he was out there, he was grabbed the handle of the door, opens the door of the cab, and the boys tumble in, and he says to the driver, Hotel Commodore, direct. Us here, Commodore there, direct. Zigzag, no. Cut your throat. And the taxi driver, he looks at these three guys built like brick outhouses, and he turns white and he drives off. And after about a couple of hundred yards, he does try to deviate a bit, but Bill, hand on the wheel, solid, didn't allow him to move off the course. So he tried it maybe a couple of times, but he got to the Commodore almost direct. The boys are good ambassadors for strength and Britain and America. They drew out the money and they took out the right fare. They weren't going to be ripped off, but they knew how much it should cost. They took out the money, they took up, and a good tip too. Now they're not all as good as that. If you could see our Highland Games strongman, for instance, they come to the games with £5 and a clean shirt and they never change either of them. But these guys are good ambassadors. And so they paid the right money. But he said, no, 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 no. So they called on the doorman to come across and, hey, tell this guy, this is the right fare. So they talked in Arabic for about 30 seconds, and the doorman turns around and says, this is not a taxi cab. He says you just come out of nowhere, grabbed the car and hijacked him. Would you believe it? It wasn't a taxi. Absolutely true story. So, you know, they do have a little bit of fun. It's not like many people. Many people think that, you know, these strong men and the television, it's all just drugs, sex and rock and roll. It's not. 2 out of 3 I don't know anything about. And the third one I know nothing about. But, ladies and gentlemen, physical culture has given me, as I say, the main thing I would think is friendship. Looking around the room tonight, you know, just there's Beryl sitting there, Beryl and Rube, Henry Atkin, you know, wonderful folks. David Gentle, new friends, Lee Morrison there, Di Bennett, Wag Bennett. You know, I can look around, John Citrone. Who's that big fella there? Eddie. Look at the size of that. Now, look. Britain's physical culture's answer to the Chippendales, In Scotland we call them chipping whales. But you mustn't be too rude about the big guys because they know, they'll tell you, any whale will tell you it's when you're spouting that you get harpooned. But ladies and gentlemen, they are all great guys. I really love the fellows in the Highland Games and in the Strongman show. Malcolm mentioned one person in particular. He was my partner in strongman shows, hand balancing and so on. So on a special night like this, you need your friends when there are bad times, as has been said earlier. You need friends, and Alec Thompson has been a great friend of mine. We met way back when we were about 16 years old. Alec was much older than I am, he always has been. And I needed somebody to jump off the top of a piano onto my unprotected stomach. I might say his aim was bad, he was the one who was picked. But he did jump onto my stomach with one foot, and the other one landed. I talked with a squeaky voice after that. But he jumped off the piano onto my stomach, and then later on joined me in the act. And we did hand balancing and all the rest together. There is a picture there in the brochure which brought back one very happy memory. I won't tell you the whole story, but it was, we were doing this stunt, and the folks here at the table will know it. It's a series of stunts. We finish up with a hand-to-hand balance, Alec holding me overhead. And as we built up the stunt, the laughter was getting louder and louder, and the applause was getting louder too. And I didn't feel like coming down, you know, up there hand-to-hand, he was holding me, and steady her up, and he said, "Come down, Dave, come down." And I said, "No, it's going big, you know," so you open your legs, you close your legs, you toss them. "Come down," he says, "come down." And he finally dropped me. You know, I was going to sue him for breach of support, but he did drop me. Why? Whenever I looked up in disgust at him, I could see why. His belt had snapped, and his trousers were slipping down all the time, and he holding me there. "Dave, come down, you know." And down his trousers were coming, they were down about his knees. And he said, "Do you see?" I said, "Let's leave it in the act." He wouldn't have that. And he said, "But you know, it was impressive, they did applaud." And I said, "Alec, it was like opening the double doors of a garage and taking out a bicycle." But we have had a lot of fun over the years, and I would like to thank him most sincerely for all the help he's given me in that time. To finish, I would like to link it, because I've been caught in a similar circumstances, but it does link us with Oscar Heidenstam and the old days in the physical culture circles. It was at the London Palladium, running up for the finale, the Mr. Universe people on the stage lined up. I had to get back into kilt because I'd been doing runner for Oscar there, and I was measuring out the kilt, putting it on, and I was at a crucial stage in putting on the kilt when in walked into the dressing room one of the lovely Miss Britain competitors. She turned very red and she, "Oh, Mr. Webster!" And, you know, I was stunned and she was stunned. And at night I was recounting this in the Royal Hotel, Woburn Place, where we had a dance in those days in the evening. And Oscar blew my cover. I was saying, and she said, you know, "Oh, Mr. Webster." He said, "He's telling you it half right." But it wasn't, "Oh, Mr. Webster." It was, "Oh, Mr. Webster." You know, there's quite a difference, isn't it? It's how you say it. You know, so he really put me back in my place, our friend Oscar. And those were great times. But ladies and gentlemen, it's great times now. It really is. So to you all, for the honour you have done me, and to you all for your fellowship, good company, and always being so great, thank you all very, very much indeed.
Honored guests and trustees, once again it's my pleasure to introduce our Hall of Fame honoree this year. Chris Dickerson, Mr. America, amateur Mr. Universe, professional Mr. Universe, and Mr. Olympia. Bodybuilder, physical culturist, actor, opera singer, Chris Dickerson. Now, unlike a lot of bodybuilders who reached the top of the rung and started in their late teens, Chris didn't start until he was 24. But he made a wise start. He had heard of Bill Pearl and had made friends with Bill Pearl, and so he took himself off to Bill Pearl Gym to start training seriously for his aim at that time, Mr. America. In his innocence, he entered the gym, Bill Pearl Gym, in a pair of shorts. Now, if you've ever seen Chris Dickerson's calves,
but he couldn't understand why he's neatly surrounded by a lot of bodybuilders who wanted to admire his calves. He had such fantastic calves. And that reminds me of another bodybuilder with fantastic calves, Steve Reeves. If you don't mind, Chris, for a moment, I'd just like to digress for a minute, because unfortunately when Steve Reeves was honoured here, I was unable to attend. I'd like to tell a little story about Steve Reeves and his calves. In 1948, Steve Reeves came to England to compete against John Greenwich for the first Mr. Universe. And it was also the time of the Olympic weightlifting in Wembley Stadium. And I'd gone there with a friend of mine, a training partner, Hayes Nicholas, and we were sitting on little benches. We were poor and couldn't afford the best seats, and the weightlifting was down there. And there was this big arena, and the rumour went round that Steve Reeves had arrived at Heathrow, that he was coming to see the weightlifting. And after a little while, the door in the far corner of the room opened, and in came this statuesque, handsome figure with his curly auburn hair, Californian tan. He was wearing a beige gabardine suit with no collar to the jacket, which was a fashion in those days. And I think what they call peg-bottom trousers, because they held round as the shoes, because they were always a little bit short. And Steve Reeves walked around, and Hayes and I watched him. Great gosh, and he walked around, and he came and sat right behind us, just there. And the benches were in tiers, one above the other. And as he sat down, of course, his trousers drew up and exposed most of his legs. We couldn't see this because we were looking forwards and didn't want to be too rude or turn around. So Hayes said, turn around, look at him. Tell me, what's he really like? I said, no, you turn around, look at him. And eventually, Hayes turned around. He turned back. I said, oh, well, he said he's got the biggest bloody calves I've ever seen. All he could see as he turned around, his eyes were right in line with Steve Reeves' calves. So, bodybuilders with great calves, a hard part to develop. Now, I'm indebted to Dave Gentle for some of the background on Chris here, and you'll find on your tables, every table has one or two lists of Chris's accomplishments. And I'd like you to just pay a little attention to that. And in particular, draw attention to the fact that he first entered the Mr. America and came first. Still determined, he entered again next year and came second. And then the third time he entered, he won overall. I don't know if you've heard of Robert the Bruce, of Scotland, Chris, that when he was hiding from the British who were pursuing him, because Robert the Bruce was a pretender to the throne, he was hiding in a cave and he was watching a spider spinning a web. And the spider would web so much, and then he would fall to the ground and he'd climb up again and go on with the web. That gave Robert the Bruce the courage to stick it out and carry on. And his motto was try again, but first you don't succeed. And that's certainly what you've managed to do. And then in the Mr. Olympia, his first time he entered, he came sixth. Then he entered again and came second. Second, I might say, to some guy called Arnold, need I say more? And then, third attempt, he came first. This is tenacity. This is where a lot of bodybuilders fail. Those who don't get the results they think they deserve. You've got to just stick it out. This shows tenacity and dedication. Now, Chris has said in David Gentle's article that he had two concerns when he started bodybuilding about two things that might hold him back and prevent him reaching the ultimate goal he wanted. And one was his height, and the other was being black. Now, regarding his height, has it occurred to you, Chris, that perhaps if you might want to trip with this, that maybe you might get a bit tall? That wasn't really your fault. And incidentally, Chris's brother is on the table one over there, together with their mutual friend, the guy there. The third triplet, unfortunately, died in a drowning accident when he was 20. So I'm sure it must have been a terrible thing for triplets, the remaining ones, to deal with. But you know, Chris, you're in good company. Let me just list a few eminent bodybuilders who are short. Short as you or shorter. Jack LaLanne, Edward Carrack, 4 or 5 times Mr. Universe, Len Sell, Larry Scott, Ian Lawrence, Virgil Scott. I'm sure some of you could remember more too. You don't have to be a giant to win the Mr. Universe. Rather than concentrating on height, I'd like you to dwell for a moment on stature. And it is stature that you have if you might not have height. I would like to borrow from Shakespeare's Julius Caesar. Why, Chris, you do aspire to narrow world like a colossus, and we petty men walk under your huge legs and peep about to find undeserving and dishonourable lives. Men sometimes are masters of their fate. The fault, dear Chris, is not in our star, but in ourselves that we are underlings. And though you may be short in height, you're great in stature, and you've certainly shown that you can prove that you are master of your fate. Let me now deal briefly with your concern about being black. I am proud that our physical culture fraternity has probably less colour prejudice than any other element of society. And my own life has been enriched by the experience as a fellow bodybuilder of rubbing shoulders flesh to flesh with fine men of all colours, race and religion. And for the ultimate word on this subject, I'm going to go to a higher authority even than Shakespeare, to wit the Holy Bible. I will quote from the book of Acts, chapter 17, verse 26. And he has made of one blood all nations of men, for to dwell on all the face of the earth, and hath determined the times before appointed, and the bounds of their habitation. Bear that in mind, he hath made of one blood all nations of men, for to dwell on all the face of the earth. Well, I'm not about to quarrel with my Lord and Saviour, so I'm sure none of you should either. So let me tell you as a surgeon, that if I cut you, no matter what the colour of your skin is, you all bleed the same boring red blood. And should the surgical necessity arise that I have to dig deeper, cut deeper, and maybe retract your ribs, expose your beating heart, they're all pink. You've all got pink hearts, you're all pink inside. So if you're black and you're talking to a white person, think of that. Your beating heart is pink, and the other guy's heart is pink. We're all pink inside. So what's the big deal? And so, if there were green men found on Mars, as there might be with our space exploration, I think that bodybuilders will give scant attention to the colour of their skin. They'll be checking out their lats, their biceps, their abdominals, and so on. And I expect they'll have big hearts too. And so, Chris Dickerson, the people in this room who are very mixed colour, race and creed, I ask that they, with me and their pink and beating hearts, join mine in embracing you in love and fellowship by welcoming you with a hearty round of applause. This says, Chris Dickerson, in recognition of his endeavour, achievement, sportsmanship, integrity and ambassadorship. Chris Dickerson.
Thank you very much. That is some speech. I don't know who he's talking about. I guess it's me. I just want to say, my arguments, what is so wonderful about it all is my concerns, my fears, my so-called arguments and hesitations are all so outdated now. And I just sat here thinking, what was that all about anyway? And so that is a compliment to the world, to how things are better. I came along in 1960s and 70s and 80s, finally hung up my jockstrap, exhausted, in 1994 when I won the Masters Olympia over 50. And that ends it. And I just want to say it's wonderful to have been around for so long because it gives you a better perspective on things and how it's changed the whole sport of bodybuilding. I got into it. We had dumbbells, barbells. We did have the so-called universal four-sided machines when there were cables. I think the smartest thing I did was to train under Bill Pearl. And that was very smart of me because whatever he said I did immediately without any thought or hesitation. And I sort of molded myself a little bit after him, and he became father, brother, everything. The poor man was exhausted by the time I finished because I called him to ask, is it okay to go to the bathroom? I was just so insecure as a young bodybuilder, especially 2 weeks before a competition. The tenacity that I showed is really a very sort of, perhaps it's inherited, but it's that I would like to say really separates me, if anything does. You fail, you try again, you get up, you try again. In honor of Oscar, and I'm going to wing this, and no one knows except me and my partner Miguel, I'm going to try to sing a song without any accompaniment. I was not going to do it because good Malcolm and the staff here, Michael and the staff, did everything possible to try to get a piano or some sort of background. I thought, well, I should at least try and see what comes out. Oscar, this is for you. Forgive me, I may hit a note sour or be under or above pitch, but here goes.